happening to me right now, but I'm not going to say why me. I'm just going to say, let's see what happens. Let's see what's going to come of this, because I know whatever comes of this, I'm going to come out of it stronger.
Welcome to the Evolve Beyond Limits podcast. I'm your host, Stacy Gissal. This podcast is dedicated to helping you create a life that sets your soul on fire. I believe that is truly possible for everybody, but you have to be willing to do a few things. You have to be willing to let go of your past conditioning. You have to be willing to break free from societal norms. And you have to be willing to get really curious about your life and how you can start to look at it differently. Each week, we will hear stories from people who have done exactly this. People who chose to disrupt the life path they were on, go against the grain, and share the lessons and perspective shifts they had to make along the way. Every episode is committed to not only inspiring you and connecting you with other amazing humans, but actually giving you the tools you need to use this information in your own life so that you continue to evolve and reconnect with your highest self. Are you ready? Let's have some fun. In today's episode, I am so excited to introduce you to Carly Grennor. So Carly Grennor helps others master their mindset to achieve their highest potential. She has a master's degree in sports psychology, and she's a board-certified behavior analyst. She actually lost over 100 pounds in 8 months by changing her habits and mastering her own mindset. When she's not networking, you can find her in the gym, powerlifting, or spending quality time with her friends and family. Her favorite meal is steak and Brussels sprouts, but life is all about a healthy balance in her mind. So cupcakes are also a favorite of hers, and there's a bonus if there are sprinkles. I wanted to bring Carly on because, as you can see from her super fun bio, she has a very different outlook on life, and I knew that you had to get to know her yourself. So let's dive right in so you can hear her story firsthand. Have some fun. That should just be how we start every episode. Let's have some fun. Okay. So welcome, Carly, to the Evolve Beyond Limits podcast. I'm so excited to have you here. And the first thing that I love to start people with is just a few questions, just so that the listeners can get to know you a little bit better. Who knows? Maybe you'll get to know yourself a little bit better. Who knows? Are you up for it?
I'm ready.
Okay. All right. Awesome. So first ones are kind of pretty easy. Where are you from?
Originally Atlanta. I live in Lakeland, Florida now.
Okay. Lakeland, Florida. I love it. Home of the Tigers training camps.
That's us.
I love it. I've been there once because of that reason. Okay. Do you have family, husband, kids, pets? What does that look like for you?
I have not married, no kids, no pets. I am a free spirit in that regard, but I do have my mom and dad and my granddad actually live close to me. And then I have an older brother who lives in Tennessee.
Very nice. Very nice. Yeah, you've got all the freedoms.
Yes, it's wonderful.
I bet. Okay, where's your favorite place to travel?
My favorite place to travel, that's a toss-up. I love Las Vegas because hiking in the desert truly grounds me. But I also love Spain. I spent a month there in college. And so that's always kind of fun.
Oh my gosh, that's so fun. Hiking in the desert. It's literally, we're in Page, Arizona right now. So we've been hiking in the desert for the last couple of weeks, which has been amazing. Okay, tell me this. Where is someplace you've always wanted to go?
Ooh, someplace I've always wanted to go. Very good question. Greece.
Oh my gosh. This is really funny. You're the second person to say that in a row. Yeah. Okay. That's really funny. Well, there's got to be something going on here. Okay. I love it. I've also heard amazing things about Greece. Always wanted to go. That may have to be like the next press pause retreat or something. Might have to make that happen. Okay. What do you have the most fun doing?
Ooh, the most fun doing. I love this question. I really have fun. I don't want to say I have fun all the time, but like really everything I do is fun. I try not to do things that aren't fun. But really spending time with family and friends, that's probably the most fun. And then of course, hiking in the desert. Like I said, that's my total grounding and I love it. I'm going this weekend, so I'm getting super stoked for it.
Yay. Okay, that's amazing. All right, this is a very selfish question, but I'm sure other people will want to know. But it's what is your favorite book?
My favorite book, Relentless by Tim Grover.
Ooh, I've read that. So good. Yeah, such a great book. Okay. And then final one is what is one of your favorite things to do as a kid?
One of my favorite things to do as a kid, I was always an athlete growing up. So I spent most of my time playing softball and basketball. And so I think really softball was probably my favorite thing to do. Basketball a close second. When it was cold outside, definitely a first.
Yeah. I love that. How often do you get to do those things now?
So I actually am in a softball league locally, which is great. And I don't get to play basketball as much anymore. I don't have a court in my neighborhood. I had a court growing up as a kid in our backyard. We had a basketball court. So I was always out there playing with friends after school and all that. So yeah, I don't get to play basketball as much as I would like anymore, but softball I do still get to do from time to time, which is great.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I always like to ask that question because often, like the things that we love to do as a kid are the things that light us up the most. And a lot of times we stop doing those things. And so I just like to hear, I love to hear when people are still really connecting with that inner child and like making sure that they're still having so much fun with those
And I
things.
should add dirt bike riding to that list too. I always rode dirt bikes growing up, and I don't do that just simply because I don't have a dirt bike right now, but it is on my list of purchases to make. So,
Oh, I can't wait to hear about that. Yeah, that sounds really fun. I love it all. I love it all. So I want to just dive right in because you have such an amazing story. And like for everybody listening, Carly and I met really not that long ago through a mutual friend, but she had such an amazing story that I knew that I had to share her with my audience. And um, in that, what I have found is that often we go through things, but we don't really realize just how amazing those transformations are. And so today I want to take a minute to just like highlight Carly. So something that's kind of fun. You're actually the second power lifter I have now had. And both of you said Greece. There's something going on. I may need to connect the two of you, but the second power lifter I've had on this show was just like really amazing stories, and I feel like there must be something to this. So I was actually a wannabe power lifter for a short period of time. Just so you guys know, I this was at the time when I actually was re- super skinny, like should never have been this small. I was only 122 pounds, but I could lift some shit because like I did really well because I was so tiny, right? Like in that powerlifting, but I really like heavyweight is not really my thing. But I know that there's so much mindset work that goes into it, which is exactly what you're helping people with now. So let's start there. Like, what led you to powerlifting?
that's a question that goes back kind of far, back to when I was 14. I started working out with a personal trainer in the summer. So I never got to sleep in during the summer that year. It was like wake up, be at the gym at 6 a.m. I'm not really sure why I chose that time, but that's the time I chose. And so I fell in love with weightlifting through my trainer. I had her all through high school. Her name was Kim Murgatroyd. She was amazing. And she became like a big sister to me. So it was more than just the trainer client relationship. She was one of my huge mentors and still is. And so when I went off to college, though, the weightlifting kind of fell to the wayside. And it was something that I was always good at. As a matter of fact, when you pick out what goes on your class ring, I talked about playing softball and basketball growing up, and it's like I look back and I'm just thinking what's on my class ring is dirt bikes and weightlifting. So clearly my priorities were there, but softball and basketball was kind of my identity as a kid. But then I had those hobbies behind the scenes that I think were more of who I am and kind of still are. So it's interesting. And so we can go back and change that answer. But anyway, so
I was going to say, I don't want to change that answer because what I think so fascinating about that is that softball and basketball are very much more, let's just say, mainstream, right? And powerlifting and dirt biking, especially, like those weren't things that maybe like the average person was necessarily doing, right? Especially a girl
right.
in those. So I think that it's actually good to highlight the fact that sometimes we put forth what we think is going to be more like we do this unintentionally a lot. We put forth
Mhm.
what we think people are going to accept as a better answer, instead of being like, and like you just recognize, like, wow, actually,
Yeah.
maybe
Like,
that's not
wait a minute,
exactly.
that wasn't even on there. So,
I love
yeah.
it.
So, in college, I just kind of, college gets in the way. We all party too much. We all do everything we shouldn't do and all of that through college. But anyway, so then after college, I really was just searching for something that I could fall in love with again and searching for a passion. It was like, I had a friend of mine who said, well, you always loved lifting weights. Why don't you just get back into doing that? I'm like, well, duh, let's do that. So then I started working out with a trainer locally, and he's a world champion power lifter. And we put on competitions at our gym. And I started in April, and we had a competition in April. I did not compete in. I went and watched and fell in love with it. And so I was ready to go for the August competition. And I really haven't looked back. Absolutely love it.
I love that. And something that you said that I think is really just should be highlighted is that you said after college, and this happens in transition times in our life, right? Like we have these transition moments where you lose one identity and then you're trying to find your next one. And what you said is that you were searching for something, and our initial instinct is to search for something new, to search for something different. But at the end of the day, what you needed to do was actually go back to your roots, go back to what made you feel good in the past. And it's funny because as we grow up, a lot of times we're always searching for the next thing. But in reality, our purpose has always been within us. Like it's something that has always shined through. And so I just love that you kind of brought that to a head because it's a beautiful lesson.
It really is. And, and I don't think I've ever stopped to think about it until we're just having this conversation here. And it's like, oh, well, I did do that. So, yeah. And I did get in touch with my inner kids. That was a huge part of my life, all through high school. I loved it. And it was kind of my escape where I could go and be myself and be my own individual and grow and learn so much about what has made me who I am today.
Oh, I love that. So I want to talk about because you had a moment in time that would have literally crushed most people and totally stripped away their spirit. But you actually did the exact opposite. Can you tell us more about that?
Absolutely. So I'll back up about a year before that event happened. I really dug in and, like so many people after college and in my 20s, I gained weight because you have very unhealthy habits and, you're working 80 hours a week, just multiple jobs, you're just stressed out. And so your health goes to the wayside. So I had gained some weight. And so, really, in my late 20s, I decided, you know what, it's time. I'm approaching 30. I've got to take control. I've got to get healthy. And so, I really worked very hard with another coach of mine, worked really hard with her, lost over 100 pounds. And I was in the best shape of my life. I was eating right. I was exercising. But I also, during that time, really did a lot of work on my mindset because that's part of a weight loss journey or any kind of transformation you want to make. I mean, we both understand like there's a lot of mindset work that goes into it. So, fast forward a little bit, after I lost the weight, I still did powerlifting that whole time, won a world championship in Las Vegas. I'm standing on the number one podium. This was in November of 2017. And so I'm 30 years old. I've just won this world championship. And literally 2 months later, I'm in urgent care. and then I'm at my doctor, and I'm going back to my doctor and back to my doctor because something is wrong with me, and I don't know what it is, and I know I'm very, very sick. And I ended up being admitted to the hospital, and I was in the hospital for 15 days and came out with a diagnosis of ulcerative colitis. And, there's different severities of ulcerative colitis. Some people can take some medication and then they're fine, they're in remission and all of that. And I don't want to say unfortunately, because I do think the diagnosis has made me so much stronger and it's made me the person that I am, but it still sucks. I mean, it was definitely a huge blow. Like you said, it was crushing. Everything I knew was no longer what I could do. And so I was not going to get up and go powerlift in the morning. Now, I took I I don't even remember how long I took off from the gym, maybe 5 weeks or so. But as soon as I could get back in the gym, I knew that was part of my mental health. I had to take control. And it was like, I don't care if I can just lift the bar. It's like, I'm going to go and do it. And so I started just picking myself back up. And, I tried all the different medications. I tried just everything you could possibly try, all kinds of alternative medications and treatments, just trying to combine them to really figure it out. And I remember, and I think I told you this, I remember laying in the hospital bed when I was initially in the hospital, and the thought crossed my mind, oh my gosh, I don't know if I'm going to make it out of here, because I was barely conscious. I could see everyone around me. I could kind of hear them, but I couldn't talk. I could just barely wave to them. I was so, so, so sick. And it was just like, but something in my head, even during that time, I said, I am not saying that out loud because I am not going to manifest that. Like, I'm getting out of here. I am going to get out of here. I'm going to rise. And I credit that to the mindset work I put in, losing the weight. Did I know that it was going to be that critical at the time? Absolutely not. But I did it because I knew I needed to. And I'm so thankful I did, because it truly got me through when I couldn't be as physically active as I wanted to be. It was like, okay, I'm going to work on my meditation practice. I'm going to work on this practice. I'm going to work on my scripting, my journaling, my gratitude and all of that. And I've done a lot of work. I thought I had done the work to totally transform my mind before, while I was losing the weight. And I'm noticing now, here we are 3 years later after the diagnosis. And I am so much further ahead mentally than when I initially got the diagnosis.
It's so, yes, because first of all, just your story is unbelievable. And your ability to, I love the fact that we don't always understand why life is happening the way it is, but then, we can connect the dots looking backwards a lot of times. And you, that work that you had done, it takes a lot to lose 100 pounds to do all of that. And it came forth when you really, really needed it. And so sometimes we have these skills that we don't really know why we're going to need them, but life does unfold for us in really beautiful ways. And it was probably hard to see. Listening to your story, it's like you went from being on, literally on top of the podium, on top of the world, and then everything you thought you knew kind of got stripped away from you. And I talk about this a lot, and I remind myself this often, is that life doesn't always give us what we want, but it always gives us what we need. And so once you started down that journey, it's like you had figured out your physical health, right? You figured out these different things. And sometimes, I know this happened to me, is that we think our physical health is everything. We think that that is the end all be all, because we're taught in our culture and in our society that the way we look is a big indicator on how worthy we are of a lot of things. And so it sounds like this transition and what happened gave you exactly what you needed, which was the time and the space to look beyond the physical and look into the emotional and the spiritual and the mental health of really where you are at.
And that is such a powerful statement because that is so true. That's exactly what it did. And I look back and I remember as I was getting better to where I could at least talk in the hospital, I remember telling my mom, you know, I don't really know why this is happening to me right now, but I'm not going to say why me. I'm just going to say, let's see what happens. Let's see what's going to come of this because I know whatever comes of this, I'm going to come out of it stronger. I'm going to be okay. No matter how long it takes, I will be okay. And then I'm going to be able to help people know that it will be okay. It may take a while for it to be okay, but it will be okay.
Yeah, and I love that you said that. And I know, like, when you and I were chatting about this prior, we had this conversation, but it's that you have found this really beautiful way to transform the karma in your life. And for anybody who's unfamiliar, karma is not always a bitch. Karma is simply that whatever we put out into the world, it comes back, and our souls carry karma with us. And so sometimes the things that we deal with, even in this lifetime, are not things that we even recognize that we're carrying around with us. But I mentioned this to you as well because I happened to ask Carly how old she was when this happened, because between the ages of like 28 and 32, what happens is called a Saturn return. And what that Saturn return is that whatever life lesson you came here to learn, or like one of them, it's going to come to a head around that time. And some people get knocked around a little harder than others. And sometimes, if you choose to work through it, then when Saturn returns again around 60, it's not going to be as brutal. But if you choose to not work through it, life is going to get a little bit difficult. And one of the most beautiful ways to transform karma, and I think it's important to note here that if something happens in your life to you or for you or whatever you want to say, it's yours. It's your karma. Like, your karma doesn't, you don't take on somebody else's karma. So it's not somebody else's fault that all of these things went down. But one of the most beautiful ways to transform that is to take what has happened and be able to help people work through very similar things that you've been through. We are the best at helping people through things that we've been through. So tell us more about how you've been able to kind of transform that time in your life to something really beautiful.
Yeah. So I think, and to be clear, I'm still kind of going through it. I've got a couple more surgeries ahead of me and, but I know I'm going to be okay now, whereas 3 years ago when it first happened, I knew I was going to be okay, but I wasn't like 100% sure, like where it was going to take me. And I still don't know exactly where it's taking me, but I'm along for the ride and I'm accepting it. And just sending it love every day of like, oh my goodness, I'm so grateful that I have the opportunity. And so what's amazing about it is I get comments all the time from people that I don't necessarily would expect the comments to come from them. But even just recently in the last 2 weeks, two of my very best friends have said, I always, when I get in a situation that seems crappy or whatever, I'm just not having a good day, I always ask myself, what would Carly do? And I don't necessarily walk around preaching positivity. It's just the way I live my life. And so it's exciting to me to be able, I have my clients, my coaching clients, they're looking to me for those kinds of answers. And so I kind of expect them to ask, how do you do this? And, what do you do? But, to have people that I've known for years and years and years, coming back to me and saying, I've just watched how you've handled this whole thing and you've handled it with such grace and such acceptance. And and such positivity. Like, how do you do that? There's no way I could do that. And my answer is always first, I don't really have a choice. Like this, and I guess I do have a choice. I don't have to be positive, but I also choose joy daily. And I make sure I write that down every day. I choose joy daily. I literally write that phrase every single day in my scripting journal because it's, to me, and I know you talk a lot about having fun all the time and just bringing the fun back into your life. And so, yeah, I guess I could sit around and be miserable, but that's just never been me. And then I think that's even more not me now that all of this has happened. And so it's really cool to be able to just be that example and live that example for people so that they can see that it's possible. Because I am not some one in a million person that nobody can do what I do. Tons of people have gone through struggles with health and come out on the other side. But it's so cool to be able to be that living, breathing example for the person who needs it.
And I think that's so powerful. And it's funny that you say that because I've actually heard that a lot lately too. About like, I asked myself, like, what would Stacy do? And usually mine is in regards to like, would she go have fun or would she like sit there, or like whatever that looks like. And so it is fun. And I can see this in you is that we will get more done and be able to show people what is really possible by showing them. You can't just tell people what to do. Like it doesn't resonate. Like we have to show and be willing. And that's hard because it is, you can't let other people dim your light, right? And you can't let other people like take you down because they will try. And you have done such a good, beautiful job of staying. And I think it goes beyond positivity. Let me just say that. I think like what you have goes beyond positivity. What I can see in you is that you are it's a hopeful. You're very hopeful for the future. And I think that you take that for granted because it's one of your superpowers. And so don't take it lightly when people are sitting there saying like, man, I think to myself, how would you do this? Be like, how would Carly make this happen? Because what our superpowers are, we usually think everybody has them. Right. But that's what makes you so special and so unique in how, in like in all the ways that you get to help people. So I think that that's um, really amazing.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting that you say that because I've done a lot of work, even just this past year, on receiving compliments. Because, we all are the first to say, oh, well, it's no big deal. And it's funny you say that to say not take it lightly when someone says, what would Carly do? Because when my friend said that, I mean, we've been friends for 20 years, I think. And he said that to me the other day. And it was just like, that meant so much to me. And I really took that to heart. Whereas normally I would have just been like, oh, well, he's just saying that because he's my friend. It's like, no, because he's pretty awesome himself. I don't surround myself with people that aren't amazing. And so I look at that and he's asking himself, what would Carly do? Like, that's awesome.
Yes. And you receiving, especially for women, it is a relearned skill. Let's put it that way, because um, we really know how to give. We know how to give all of ourselves to everybody. But there's the law of giving. The more you give, the more you receive. The thing is, that law should really be the law of giving and receiving because you have to be able to open heart, like with an open heart, do both of those things, not just one. And women like to give everything, but they really struggle to receive. So maybe you can talk about what are some, because I get this all the time, like how do I start to make that shift? How do I start to be more open to receiving? And ladies and gentlemen, if you can't receive a compliment, I'm going to tell you that you can't receive shit in your life. Like, so you, like we could start
Amen.
there. But yeah, tell us more about that.
I think that's really a great question. And I'll tell you how I've done it. And there's probably many different ways, but how I did it, I simply, one, I had to build the confidence. You have to build a good foundation of confidence. And, one trick that I've seen is people post on sticky notes, just write hashtag confidence and stick them all over because you are awesome. And, you have your own zone of genius and your own just special gifts and superpowers like you were saying. And so I think that's important. But then another way that I did it, I talked a little bit earlier when I was speaking about choosing joy daily. I write that down every day. I literally script every day that I give and receive love daily. And so putting that in there and receive. So you don't want to just give love, but you do need to give it. But then also, I put in there and I make it a point to say, I receive love daily. And so, and I've also done some hypnosis practices as well, where, you have those hypnosis statements in there, like, I am worthy of receiving love. I am worthy, those types of things. So anything like that, but simply writing things down and then saying them out loud too. I give and receive love daily. That's a powerful way to get started.
I love those tips. Those are going to be so helpful for so many people. And it is with everything, it's practice, right? And we live in an Amazon Prime world where we just think everything should be overnighted to us. And the second that we start to work on something, we want to be great at it. And the reality is, it takes so much practice. And I even say, like, I don't know if anybody who's listening is a golfer, but you can apply this to any sport. But it's like even the best golfers hit it in the sand trap more often than they'd like to, right? And so it's not about being perfect. It's just about continuing to practice, because even in those moments that it doesn't seem like it's doing anything, it is. And there's going to come a time when you look back and you're like, wow, look at all the progress that I've made, right? So,
Yeah.
with that, I want to ask, like, looking back, and you obviously have done so much work, but what are some of, like, what do you think are like the one or two biggest lessons or perspective shifts that you had to make in this journey so far?
Yeah. Cool. So I think I had the biggest perspective shift I had to make was that I could do it myself, that I could do it by myself. Um, I didn't lose the weight by myself. Yes, the choices I made did it, but I had that accountability with my coach to lose the weight and checking in with her. There was no way I could have made the shift in my perspective and mindset by myself. I have my business coach and I also have, um, y- I talked about my hypnotherapist. So he helped tremendously and just cultivating relationships with like minded people. So, attending the Betterment Brew, like we talked, all of that, just surrounding yourself with like minded women just truly helps shift that perspective. And so the biggest perspective shift is that you can do it alone because it's extremely hard to do it alone and it's very lonely to try and do it alone.
And I'm just sitting here like shaking my head. Yes, yes, because this is like, as a like a recovering high achiever, as like a we tend to think I grew up very independent, right? And I can see that you probably did the same thing. And independence is good up until a point, right? Until it's holding you back. And that's why it's so important to always be reevaluating your life and where you're at, because you like independence in some ways can move you forward. But then as soon as it starts to hold you back, you have to be willing to make a shift. And that's something that, if I could give anybody any advice from this, is to, yeah, you can do it alone, but it's going to fucking suck. And it's going to be hard and it's not going to be as fun. And if you can hire somebody or get in a group of people that are going to force you to up level and that are going to force you to get uncomfortable and that are going to help you because they've already been through it. They can slingshot your progress forward and you don't have to take so much time and learn so many hard lessons along the way. So I love that.
Yeah. And, just reach out to the people who have done it because we put in the hard work so that you don't have to, so that's been super helpful for me is reaching out to people who have done it before me.
Yes, yes, so much so. And that's again, that's why we do what we do. And we mentioned this in the beginning, and it just keeps coming back that we are the best at helping people um, that are where we used to be, and it's because you can do it the hard way, which everything's going to take effort, but it doesn't have to be as hard as a lot of times we make it.
No, and it's way more fun to have a team on your side. Way more fun.
So much more fun and everything. Like, it's funny because when we talk about personal development, I've been thinking about this a lot lately. It has become like, when did it become so fucking serious? Like, that is something that is driving me a little bit bonkers, is that like the whole idea of like personal development has become like this, like it has to be so hard and it has to be like, it's just like, it's so difficult to go through. It's like, we can make this like, once you start down that journey, just so you guys know who are listening, you don't get to stop. Like, it never stops. And so we might as well make it a damn good time along the way.
Yeah, like I'm always growing and learning. And, you know, I talked a little bit about I'm going hiking in the desert this weekend and I'm so excited. And I looked up and I was like, yeah, but it would be so much more fun if there was like a race going on at that time. And I found one. So I'm doing a 10K on Saturday and I just told my friend, you're doing it with me. And he's like, oh my gosh, why? And I was like, listen, it builds character. You're going to be so happy when it's done. And we're going to have so much fun. We're going to make so many memories. He's like, oh, okay, that's fine. It wouldn't be you if it weren't a little bit challenging, because the challenge makes it fun for some people, but it's still a fun challenge. It's not, oh my gosh, I have to go and go through all this torture to get it done. No, I'm going to enjoy the books I read. If I don't enjoy the book, I put it down and I pick up another one. If it's not speaking to me and I'm not having fun reading it, well, then don't read it. Like, go find something, because there's so much out there. Find what speaks to you and find what makes it fun for you.
Yes. And I love that you said that about books. I read my first fiction book in, I don't even want to admit how long, probably a few months ago, and this is the other thing I want to mention, personal development is not what we do for fun. Okay. So this is also a misconception that all of a sudden, once you start growing, once you start evolving, every book you read, every podcast you listen to, every single thing you do has to be to level up. I'm putting that into air quotes, in some way or another. And the reality is, we miss out on the fun in life when we are doing that. Like, our business is not what we do for fun. We can love our business, but it's not what we do for fun. We have to have these other ways of bringing fun into our life, because like, we just take things so damn serious. And I can only say this because this is literally this used to be my reality. Everything had to have a quote unquote purpose. And that purpose couldn't simply be just to make life worth living.
Yeah. And I think you hit the nail on the head. We don't, because we have to take a break. You have to, or else then you become all consumed. And so, I talk about wanting to buy a dirt bike again, because that's something I can go and do with my mom and dad. They both have dirt bikes and they're out traveling out west, riding their dirt bikes every day because they're retired. Well, guess what? I want that right now. And so I'm going to go get that right now. I'll still work, but at the same time, I'm going to go have some daggum fun with them, because they don't get to have all the fun.
Right. And first of all, I want to be friends with your parents. Second of all, I I am going to wait for the text message to come through that Carly bought a dirt bike after this episode, because it's so important to put that stuff first, because like I wrote a post on this last week about the fact, like, don't wait until you're 50. And this has nothing to do with the age. It's that we put off living our life because we have been told that there's all these other things that we have to accomplish before we just get to live life. My, I like, if you take nothing else from anything I ever say, it's live your life first, because that's what matters at the end of the day, is that you lived this beautiful life that you are taking every day and making it the best that it can possibly be.
Absolutely. And I think I can't say that any better. That's like perfectly said. Live your life because you only get one for real.
For
So
real.
live it, and the other stuff will fall into place. Like, yes, you have to be intentional about your time and be intentional with scheduling that personal development but schedule it. I schedule white space in my calendar so that if I feel like going to get my nails done that day, I can go. Or if I feel like going to the pool, I can go, because it's just so important. It's not about how much you work, it's about the intention. And so being intentional with your time and all of that is just extremely important.
I love that you said that. It's not about how much you work, it's about being intentional with your time. And that coming from, and I know you probably feel this way, but as going from an entrepreneur, or from normal, like I was a nurse, into entrepreneurship was so hard, because what I was taught and what we see growing up is you work 9 to 5, right? And I even remember when I became an entrepreneur and I was home and my husband had to go to work, I felt this really weird pressure that I put on myself, because he never said anything to me, that I had to work from 9 to 5 also, or else I wasn't doing enough. Right. And so, but the reality is, even when people are at work, they're not, I mean, maybe nurses, but like a lot of people aren't working that entire time. So, and I love that you brought up the fact of scheduling it, because one thing that I will say that I used to have to schedule was fun, because it was something that was so foreign to me that I would actually have to schedule in play. And now it's like my go-to, but before it was so difficult. So why I'm saying this is because if this concept feels super foreign to you, schedule it. Like, give yourself, make sure it's the first thing that goes on your calendar, is how are you going to play that day? How are you going to have fun that day? Because, like we've talked about a lot in this podcast so far, it's about the practice, and we have to start to put that in. Um, it's funny, even yesterday, I scheduled 3 2-hour time blocks, which I normally don't schedule more than two, but I took some time off last week, and two of them I finished early. And I gave myself that space to finish early and go do something fun with the extra time that I had, instead of feeling this compulsive need to fill it with busy, just like staying busy, right? Busyness isn't a badge of honor.
No, it's not. And I'll tell you, I have so much fun and joy in my life because I'm intentional about making sure that I add that in there. I mean, there are days and weeks where I work a lot more than I normally would, but at the same time, there's other weeks where I don't work nearly as much. Like, and what's interesting about it is you bring up the whole 9 to 5 concept. And as an entrepreneur, you're not doing that. Like, I'm hosting a class Sunday while I'm out in Vegas from 4 to 5, but it's like, that's fine. That's right before dinner. I'll get on, do the class, and then I have the rest of the night. And that's probably the most I'll work for the 4 or 5 days that I'm out there.
Yeah, I love it's so funny. Actually, my dad always he can't quite grasp the fact that I choose to work on weekends sometimes. Like, he's like, "But it's the weekend." I'm like, "Yeah, that's not really how my job works, because a lot of times, like, I might take off a few days in the middle of the week, you know?" So it's just so funny. So one final question I would like to end with is, what is one lesson you feel like you're still in the middle of learning?
Oh, that's a great one. So, one lesson I feel like I'm in the middle of learning. I think I'm still in the middle of learning how to be vulnerable.
Mm,
That's something I've done a lot of work on recently. I had the confidence got the receiving down. And now it's like, okay, I need to be vulnerable. I need to be okay with sharing my story because, like you said, one of my superpowers is the hopefulness that I bring. And I do take it for granted. And so I think that is definitely the lesson that I'm in the middle of learning. I've gotten so much better at it, but I'm still learning on how to be vulnerable and that it's okay to be vulnerable.
Oh, I feel you there, sister. It's not an easy lesson to learn, but it is so necessary. Oh my gosh. Well, this has been amazing. There's been so many like just knowledge bombs, nuggets that people are going to be able to take from this. I know that people are going to want to connect with you more and know more about like what it is that you have to offer, how they can work with you, how can they just connect with you? So what are some of the ways that they can do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm on Instagram. It's just my name at Carly Grennor. And then I'll also make sure you have the link to my calendar so they can schedule a connection call with me if they want to do that. And we can do one-on-one coaching. I'm in the process of launching my group course and or group program and then an actual course. So all of that will be coming this summer. So I think this is great timing for all of that. And then so I'll just make sure that you have the link to my calendar. You can post in the show notes.
Oh my gosh, that's so sweet. And seriously, if any of this resonated with you, like take that link and book the call. I know that it feels scary. I know that it feels like, but that is like the first step is always the most difficult. And there is a reason if you resonated with something, there's a reason that people come in and out of our lives. There's a reason that you chose to listen to this episode. There's a reason behind all of that. So if you feel that call, just connect. There's like there's no commitment to anything. It's it's simply just a
No.
connection.
Yeah, there's never any pressure. And I love just making new friends. And so, at the end of the day, if we make a new friend, then we've won.
Yes, I love that. I love that. Well, I am so beyond grateful for you, Carly, for coming in and just sharing your story with the listeners and just for you being you. Like you are such a light and you have to keep showing up for people because people need that right now more than ever. And there's a shift happening. And that hopefulness and that lightness that you bring to life is something extremely beautiful that people really need. So thank you.
Well, thank you. And I want to acknowledge you for just creating this platform for people like me to share our zone of genius and our superpowers. So, because without you, it would not be possible.
Oh,